Good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm Mark Bradberry. Why don't you grab a cup and join me this morning? Now, this is part 4 of our talk on the power of ordinary, so you may want to go back and review the previous videos. But for today, let's just say that you've recognized the big problem in your life and, well, you're ready to face it. Maybe it's something out there in the world like poverty or social injustice or wrongful politics. Or maybe it's something more personal like needing to find a new job, or you've got a difficult relationship or some sort of chaos in your life. Those are all valid, and it was a tough choice for you. But you've moved past your fears and you have finally stepped up and answered the clarion call to do something about it. But what now? What do you do? The problem still has yet to be solved, and, well, good intentions just don't really get you anywhere. Now, we've been talking some about Gideon, the mighty warrior who had been hiding due to the Midianite occupation of his country, Israel. Now, you remember that story. Now, Gideon was nothing special. He was just an ordinary guy, but God chose him for a special mission, one that Gideon could never have accomplished on his own, and that was to deliver the nation of Israel from its oppressors. So, Gideon, God said, I'm going to be with you, and you will win the victory. And with that, Gideon, the weakest man in the weakest tribe in all of Israel, passed his moment of crisis. He passed that point at which we all choose whether to adhere to God's will. And he stepped up. He accepted the mission. He embraced the call, and he acknowledged the need as true. He knew that if God could do it, whatever might be required would happen. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times we seem to think that accepting the call is, well, enough. We think, though, that our willingness to listen is somehow sufficient. Well, among Christians, I find that there's a bit of a tendency to think that, well, faith is plenty, and that turning our hearts toward God and accepting His way just sort of settles the issue. Then we can just sit back to watch God at work. Well, that's a problem. It's kind of like, expecting the big football game to be won simply because you bothered to tune in to the channel. No, life does not work that way, not at all. Accepting the call, accepting the task is significant. There's an inner battle that goes on there, but there's still work to be done. Now, God called Gideon to defend the nation, and after some initial fears, Gideon agreed, and he got busy. Now, he didn't just jump up and change everything all at once. No. It took time and effort, as you would reasonably expect. You can read the account for yourself in the Old Testament book of Judges, but you'll see the fundamentals of what an ordinary man did in extraordinary circumstances, ordinary steps and approaches that are still valid today. He asked God to prove himself, and he kept going back to God to confirm the mission. He started small, working right there from where he was in his own community. He was realistic. He didn't try to leapfrog ahead to the end. He got his family involved, those closest to him who knew him best. He started confronting local problems within his sphere of influence. And he connected with friends and with others throughout the land via messengers, just ordinary people who brought their own skills and abilities to the table. And before long, through persistence, he had successfully raised an army of 32,000 men. Wow. Gideon did his part. Today we might call that activism. But let's not lose sight of the miraculous here. Gideon stepped out in faith to do his part. And then God said, Gideon, 32,000, well, that's just too many. Let me show you something. And God winnowed down this force to just 300. That's right, less than 1% of the total. So here's 300 guys against an enemy numbering perhaps in the tens of thousands, you know. The Bible tells us that the Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples of the land had settled in the valley, thick as locusts, and their camels were so many that could be no more counted than the sands on the seashore. Well, what happened next was one of the most lopsided victories in all of history. We learned that Gideon and his men quietly surrounded the camp of the Midianites in the dark. They were pretty well spread out. And when the small force suddenly announced their presence with blaring trumpets and torches that were suddenly revealed, the Lord caused the men throughout the Midianite camp to turn on themselves with their own swords. And the battle was won without a fight. Now, what's my advice over a cup of coffee today? Well, it's simply this. Don't underestimate what the Lord can do through your faithfulness. No. There are big problems out there waiting to be conquered, you know. If you just step up to do the good, you know, just get started where you are. Remember that God does not need great people. He just wants ordinary people who are willing to join him in his extraordinary mission. So, after coffee, of course. Enjoy your coffee.